let's talk about ruby and sapphire.
Yeah.
You know what's so great about those two stones? Do you know what they're called?
No.
Corundum.
Oh, okay.
Corundum. And did you know that corundum is the next hardest substance to diamond?
Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, and so they actually have to use corundum if they want to drill into diamond or anything, manipulate diamond, because it's so hard, then they have to use corundum to do it. So that's why they say rubies and emeralds and diamonds and rubies and sapphire are corundum. And we all know that ruby is associated with love, and we all know that we love sapphire, but we don't necessarily know why. But I had the most interesting conversation ever when I talked to ruby and sapphire about their properties and what they do and what they're offering mankind. And they were kind of cagey. They didn't want to just share the information. They actually kept making me do this more research and more research. And they said, no, you must do research about us and then we'll talk to you. So I said, well, okay, let's do that research. So the first thing I discovered is that they are corundum, which I knew, and the word corundum comes from the Sanskrit, and it's spelled with a K, but of course I don't think Sanskrit has the same letters as we do. And then it went on from there, and one of the interesting things about them is that the smallest trace element of chromium is what makes the ruby red.
Okay.
So these are all rubies. That's my ruby sphere that I use for inspiration. Isn't that fabulous?
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I think we should show that. I love this. I keep it on my desk as my inspiration. And it has this amazing spot of intensity, almost in a perfect circle.
Yeah.
And I rather love that. See, there it is. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it's like a little point.
Yeah. So that I use for my inspiration. And then these two rubies I bought on different occasions. This is from long ago. I can't even remember where I got this one. This one I got from Elite in Tucson. And I said, don't you have something special for me? And they went and dug under the table and brought out a few of these.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And it was like, okay, it makes me thirsty and like I'm drooling because this ruby. Now just feel this one in your hand.
It glistens.
It's heavy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because ruby is very dense, and so is sapphire. Of course, they're both corundum. Yeah, hold that color up. That's for the camera. It's really gorgeous. It's luscious.
Mm-hmm.
It's enjoying showing off too. I like it when you can get a stone with a flat surface like that, because then that lends itself to being used as a chakra stone.
Mm-hmm.
That's really useful. But it's also got its formation and it's beautiful natural stone. It was one of those where I spent a little extra than I usually do.
Well worth it.
Yeah, it has been. It has been. It's, the ruby just dispenses this loving energy, and that's really what these properties are, and what I want to talk about in this piece over here. This is ruby in zoisite, and this actually has phantoms. You can see these outlines here that are fainter. These are actually ruby phantoms inside this ruby material. Wow. And this material comes from Africa. This is zoisite, this green. This zoisite extracts negativity,
mm-hmm.
and the ruby injects love.
Perfect.
So what we'll do in the demo when we get to that part is I'll show how we use the ruby in zoisite, where we get the zoisite to extract the negativity, and then we get the infusion of the love energy from the ruby to go in the place of the negativity. You get a 2-in-1 with this combo. And I'm going to lay this stone this way, because if it falls over and crashes on the glass, that's not such a pleasant sound if it keeps crashing. We'll just open this up a little bit. Now this material over here is ruby in fuchsite. This is the fuchsite partner. I call it fuchsite because it's named after Herr von Fuchs, but then people don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm being a bit stubborn, I think, which is fine. I'm allowed some of the time. So this is the fuchsite, and that's the ruby. Over there, and you can see it's got its beautiful hexagonal pattern. It's quite gemmy. Mm-hmm. And that also, fuchsite is a kind of mica, and it moves stagnant energy, so it also moves the energy and then gives an infusion of the ruby. And that's really wonderful. It's really a fantastic thing. I also got some of these rubies. Look at the color on that. It's almost gemmy, in its tendency. And I use a lot of little rubies in my work. I can't even say all the different ways that I use ruby, but I'm definitely using ruby in my healing work every single day, one way or another. Mostly in this formation, quite a lot in the small stones. You can see I have a collection of the small stones here. And this is a combination of sapphire, the blue, and what gives the blue color is a combination of iron and titanium. But the point is that just those trace elements that makes this red and makes this blue, it's the smallest amount. And that is one of the lessons from ruby and sapphire. It's just the smallest amount of an ingredient gives you a quality, a property, and an appearance that is very empowering and very powerful and has a big impact. And it is the smallest amount. And that is one of the lessons that sapphire and ruby wanted to teach me, was that the smallest amount of an ingredient can make a huge difference. And there it is with the ruby and sapphire. But not only that, we've been talking about how we all know that ruby has this quality of love. But it's actually more than that. Because what the ruby and the sapphire told me was that they're very dense and they're very heavy. And I said, well, what's going on here? And they said, well, spirits, when they are incarnated and become dense, become human beings. And when love incarnates and becomes dense, it becomes ruby. So this is incarnated love that we can actually hold in our hands. Yeah, give it a shot. Mm-hmm. Thinking about that, just feeling that love. I'm going to hold this one.
Get in.
Yeah, when you realize what it is, that this is the incarnation of love that we're holding, it puts a different complexion on the experience, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Right. So that's that. And then the sapphires, let's give them a turn. Put a sapphire in your hand. That is the incarnation of acceptance. Isn't that great?
So pretty.
Yes. And so these are blue. You can see, oh yeah, that's blue. I accept that that's sapphire. It gets a little bit confusing when it's a poorer quality, poorer in the sense of color. So this is a sapphire, which is slightly pink. It's not very blue, but it's in that pinky, purpley, bluish tendency. If it's clearly pink, it's ruby. If it's tending towards purple or blue, it gets called sapphire. And this one, you'll be able to see it from your angle if you turn it a little bit. It's covered in record keepers, which means that it's holding information. That's referring, where record keeper is referring to the Akashic records, and that's a library of information. And that's one of the ways that I use ruby and sapphire, because they are record keepers if they have these triangles engraved on them. And this one is the most spectacular throat chakra stone. It's absolutely amazing. And I will put it on your throat chakra when we do the demo. And it just goes on to help people build their self-expression, because it is injecting acceptance. And when we're not feeling accepted, it's hard for us to express ourselves. When we are feeling accepted, we feel encouraged and we want to express ourselves. So that is how sapphire boosts our energy and the direction that it boosts our energy in, as well as many other things. Sapphire has a lot of properties. But we can't cover everything when we're talking about it, so we just cover the highlights and what's important to us in this moment. So there we go. And then I have this very nice tool of ruby in zoisite, and that's something that a friend of mine made. Actually, you know her, Barbara, and it's got a nice active point, which is important to me in crystal surgery. So I love this piece of ruby in zoisite. So this is actually this material, the same material, but it's been shaped.
Okay.
Yeah, there we are. One other way that we use ruby in crystal healing and crystal surgeries, I use this ruby. This over here is the ruby, and this material around it is called schist, schist. So this is ruby in schist, and we use this to make the walls of the cells in the energy field more malleable. And when we want to modify the walls of the cells in the energy field, like you do that in your physical body for scar tissue, you have to do that in the energy field as well, also for scar tissue, but etheric scar tissue, you can use ruby to soften the walls and help them become reshaped, together with some other stones. But that's what we do in crystal surgery. We use that, and that's a sapphire. And then I use these to represent, when I'm doing microsurgery, I use these sapphires and rubies, these little ones, to represent the vertebrae, just because they're a good shape for laying out the components of the spine and the nerves coming off the spine and so on. So I actually use a supply of these for that. So this whole concept of unconditional love, Ruby wanted to speak to me about that and ask me to do the research first. And there was a kind of a caginess to it, as I said. And I thought, I wonder why Ruby's being so cagey. And so I looked it all up, and Ruby said, look up unconditional love. And of course, I'm trained in psychology, so I'm not lacking in knowledge about the concept of unconditional love. But what was so interesting was that I didn't realize that unconditional love is a very recent term that was coined only in the 1930s. People tend to assume it comes from the Bible, or it's got a spiritual component, or even a New Age component. And you know what? It was coined in the 1930s by a psychologist, and actually a psychoanalyst named Erich Fromm. And unconditional love was coined by him, and we think it's so spiritual. He was an atheist. No wonder Ruby was being cagey. Wanted me to find out the facts behind the term unconditional love. And unconditional love was developed as a concept by a humanistic psychologist, Carl Rogers. And I studied quite a bit about Carl Rogers when I was studying psychology. But not only that, I actually met him. He came to Cape Town. And this was in the 1980s. And I actually got to meet him. And he expanded the concept of unconditional love. He said, this is a little bit difficult for human beings. You know, when a mother and father, or just a mother, thinks of having a baby, there's an unconditional love and welcoming of a spirit. And so that's pre-conception, then during conception and post-conception while the fetus is in the womb, and then after the baby's born, up until about age 3, you can want to strive for unconditional love. But after that, that's a little bit difficult, because you do have to socialize your child, you do have to teach them how to behave, and unconditional love becomes inaccessible at that time. But not what Carl Rogers suggested, to expand the concept to unconditional positive regard. That's different, because that you're suspending judgment and criticism and unconditionally regarding your child positively and steering them, but not this inaccessible, way too difficult to do unconditional love dynamic. So unconditional positive regard from Carl Rogers, and also for Sapphire, unconditional acceptance in the world. And we do all deserve both of those dynamics, and those are dynamics that will nurture us and help us develop. And so that is what Ruby and Sapphire has to give to the world. And you can do that via jewelry, you can do it by stones in your pocket, or you can do it via crystal healing. But they can communicate and become a source of unconditional love, unconditional positive regard, and unconditional acceptance in the world. So on that note, I just want to say that I did have 2 ruby pendants made, and I did wonder, why am I making 2 of these? So here's the one, and here's the other. And I had these made, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Scoop made them for me. And I wondered, why 2? They're so similar and everything. Well, I have 2 granddaughters that will one day get these pendants, and I am so pleased to have these ruby pendants to pass on to my beautiful granddaughters. It gives me great pleasure to show them now and to talk about that. So that's great. So, having said all that, shall we do a demo?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So besides wearing ruby, and you can of course, get ruby jewelry, and that's very desirable. You can wear rings, you can wear earrings, you can wear pendants. And besides wearing it, you can actually do crystal healing with it. You can put it in your pockets. Some people like to put the ruby in their bra, and you can use it in a healing session as well. So you could, for example, infuse ruby, and we could take that sphere that we have, which is here, and I could infuse the ruby into Linda, like so. But that's not generally how we use it in our crystal surgery, crystal healing, but in general crystal healing, this seems like a good idea. How does it feel, Linda?
Feels wonderful.
Beyond speech, it seemed there for a moment, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm saying it's mesmerizing me. So this is always an option, to be infusing the mineral into your system in that fashion. That's not what I'm going to show you the most of. I'm going to get Linda set up with some other stones, and then I'm going to add the ruby in. So here we are. I'm going to use these pyrite concretions under the hands. These are Chinese material. It's a concretion. This black, the black that the stone is on, is called a concretion, and then the gold glittery stuff, that's pyrite. And these two stones together, they get mind and body to coordinate with each other, which is a wonderful thing to do. And so I'm going to put them under the hands to stimulate the heart and mind coordinating together to bring about a harmonious synchronicity between those 2 functions. Because sometimes what our heart wants and what our mind wants, they can be a little bit in conflict with each other, or they might not be working at exactly the same frequency. And by putting the pyrite concretions under the hands, we get that synchronous, harmonious coordination of the 2 dynamics. I'm going to put purple fluorite on the 3rd eye, and this is a lovely piece of purple fluorite. It's got a lovely flat surface. It makes it very comfortable as a 3rd eye stone. It's also the right size and the right weight, and these are very important attributes for a chakra stone. And what this purple color does is it calms the brain beautifully, because it just gives that calmness like you get when you go into a quiet, darkened room, and you just feel, oh, that's much better, that's more comfortable, it's not so overstimulating. So we'll put that on the 3rd eye. Then we're going to put this beautiful stone on the space between the root chakra and the 2nd chakra. There's a root chakra stone. This is red uvite on magnesite, and my stone has a lovely little curve to it that sits nicely. There we go. This is a lovely curved area, and that sits nicely on the physical body there in that spot. It's like a smile. When I put that stone in position, I feel like I'm being smiled at. Then under the heels, I'm going to put cachalong. It's this material. It's very white, and it sends white light into the energy system, and that white light dissipates negativity, darkness, toxicity, and so on. So this cachalong is very white material, and it really has a fantastic effect on the energy field, the energy body, the structures of etheric tissue in our systems. Right, so let's just do that. We'll put those under the heels. Lovely. Lovely. So there we've got a setup. We've got something under the heels, something under the hands, something to stabilize the energy system at the root chakra, something to stabilize the energy system at the third eye, and now we're going to put on the ruby. So let's see, let's put this one in position here, this one over here. So this is ruby in zoisite, and then we're going to put on a little ruby in fuchsite. So I like to make like a puzzle. You see how this fits so beautifully? That's one of the things I like to do when I'm playing with chakra stones, is to get the stones to fit together like puzzle pieces. It gives me an extra bit of satisfaction, and I know that means it's because the stones are also enjoying themselves, and they enjoy the feeling of working together, and this connection, this feeling of connection with the different layers and the different energies are kind of meshing together in a harmonious manner. And I like that feeling very much. So then we're going to put these two on, and again I've got sort of puzzle piece thing going here with my ruby in zoisite. And then I'm going to take this record keeper sapphire and put it on the throat chakra, because it is a wonderful stone for the throat chakra. There we are. Now what the job is to get this love for the ruby to penetrate into the energetic system and really give a supportive vibration, and to harness the energy of the zoisite and the fuchsite or fuchsite to get this will move stagnant energy, and zoisite will extract negative energy. So we want to pull those up into the energy field so we can detox, Linda. And in the place of the negative vibration, we're going to put the beautiful vibration of unconditional positive regard, unconditional love, and unconditional acceptance as carried by the ruby and sapphire. And we're going to infuse that, get that to penetrate the energetic system so that there's both a detoxing and a support happening. How great is that? It's just wonderful. So for that, I'm going to need my little pricking device. Here we are. I have my pricking device. And what this is chlorite. The green is chlorite in quartz. And this is from the Himalayas. And so I'm going to use these 3 quartz prongs to prick into the energy field. This is like pricking sausage. It lets the juices out and also lets the cooking in, as it were. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm pricking here. And you know what? I do need my bowl. And so here is my bowl. And it's a cleansing device. It transforms negativity into white light. So I clear my little pricking wand by the energy of my bowl. It's clearing and transforming the negativity. Whatever's dark, it transforms it into white light. And so I'm pricking, and as I go, I transform the negativity into white light. You do want to practice that energetic hygiene. So that's excellent there. It's done. And now I can just leave that in position and continue with whatever other healing techniques and procedures I want to do. And so that's how we use ruby in zoisite, ruby in fuchsite, and ruby in general in crystal healing and crystal surgery. And of course there's a lot more that you can do with it, but I thought I'd just show you that part, which I do almost every single session with almost every single person, because that is a fundamental and wonderful aspect of ruby and sapphire. Such powerful minerals, corundum, and beautiful and very, very valued throughout our society. These are the most expensive gems, ruby and sapphire, along with emerald and diamond as well. But we do love our ruby and sapphire, and we love them in their natural form, as crystals. Doesn't have to be a gemstone, but of course the gemstones are wonderful too. Enjoy. Thank you.